Okay, we are back. We have a wonderful session with Bruce Harding, and we are going to discuss inclusive language. Please don't turn off your sets, all of you out there in, Zoom land, because this is an important discussion that we really need to have. Lots of people don't really understand the reason we have inclusive language, and some of us, it's not that we don't understand, it's difficult to maybe get that across to our congregations. So take it away, Bruce.
Thank you, Karen. Well, thanks for coming back, everyone. Whew, it's been a long day already. This is nap time, isn't it? Something like that. It really is.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, well, wow. Inclusive language. And when I first thought of taking this topic on, and I should tell you the context, because we as an organization are in the middle of the process to become an affirming organization. How many people are in affirmed congregations? Because inclusive language should be a part of our mandate in our congregations. What we sing, how we sing it, includes and excludes people. And so, in our own congregation, Cheryl and I at Crossroads United Church, it's an affirming congregation, but you still struggle and wince with words that go by and do this to our sensibilities. And that's really what I'm getting on about. I don't want to do a whole plenary presentation. I started out saying, how can I even approach this? I want to give you some ideas and I want to have a conversation. So I'm hoping Karen won't mind taking a microphone around, and maybe we can get some feedback from folks up on Zoom as well as we talk about inclusive language.
Do we need someone to monitor the chat?
Yes.
That would be good.
Someone to monitor the chat. I can kind of monitor. Do I have chat up here? Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And I've got chat up here too, so I can keep an eye on it a little bit as well. Very good. I should tell you that I grew up in a fairly atypical United Church kind of a context. Both of my folks are clergy. They met in theology school and then started making babies, just like that. Mom eventually had to drop out, because that's what you did in the late 60s. You had to drop out of school if you were having children and all of that. So she came back later on and finished her MDiv, but my folks worked in team ministry together. But I grew up in a community that respected and recognized, at that time, inclusive language had to do with the male-female gender spectrum. So that's really what it was all about. I remember my very first jobs as a choir director. I'm 19 years old. I'm working with more senior women than myself in the choir, and having practically yelling matches over language change. And then you have these great animated discussions, and then somebody would say, he's the choir director, listen to him. It's his choice, doesn't matter what you think. So I was able to impose some language change. I want to start with a hymn, You can find a Voices United and a More Voices, and those of you online as well can find a More Voices and a Voices United, and keep them close, because I think I want to popcorn out of the book and look at instances of language. But I want to start with number 49 in More Voices. 49 in More Voices. When we seek language. praise you, O God. All we can utter seems stale, tame, or odd. Tongue-tied and word lost, we struggle to find phrases that slide neither heart, soul, nor mind. Infinite, intimate, unbounded friend, cosmic companion who loves without end. Nearer than heartbeat, more subtle than breath, keener than insight, and stronger than death. Steadfastly loving, you gave us your word. All we can utter seems stale, vain, and blurred. Teacher and healer, whose promise came true, dying and rising to make all things new. Infinite, intimate, unbounded friend, cosmic companion who loves without end. Nearer than heartbeat, more subtle than breath, keener than insight, and stronger than death. To be our guardian, supporter, and guide, you send your spirit to stay by our side. Source of community, wellspring of prayer, power to strengthen and courage today. Infinite, intimate, unbounded friend, cosmic companion who loves without end. Nearer than heartbeat, more subtle than breath, keener than insight, and stronger than death. Thank you. So what's one of the first things you notice about that hymn? The meter changes, yes. Is it? Well, lots of melodies are tricky. Thornbury's tricky. Nobody thinks it is because they sing it a lot. How about the words?
They hit pretty hard.
It's fully Trinitarian and it's completely inclusive. It is possible to do that in modern hymns. That's what I would love to see us moving ourselves towards as a denomination. I'm not interested in that. There's a branch of, they call themselves progressive Christians in Canada. What they're largely doing is erasing the Trinity and replacing with love and other kinds of descriptions of the holy. I'm interested in, for us in the United Church, I'm interested in a fully Trinitarian expression of the faith, but one that includes everyone in the circle. Because we all have circles around who we are, right? And sometimes they intersect. You might be someone that loves gospel songs. Somebody else loves gospel song. You intersect. But you might be somebody who has been wounded, sexually abused even. And that makes you sensitive to language of dominance, Lord language, all of those kinds of issues. And so you no longer intersect. So if we can create the kind of space in our churches where everybody always feels welcome and everybody feels included, then we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. Plus, that's just a beautiful hymn. Quite stunning. And yes, it's kind of funky how that meter shifts, doesn't it?
But it doesn't shift in a way that makes it difficult for people to follow.
It doesn't shift in a way that makes it difficult for people to follow. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, and Alexandra and I were talking about, like, we set it up so the tempo markings give you the sense of it, but you could put a metric modulation in there. I generally do it as the half note becomes the dotted half over the bar. So there's a commonality from one time signature to the other. And yes, you stretch a little bit, and it gets a bit slower and more expansive in the refrain, but still, that's important. So as I was saying, when I was a kid, and when I first started working at age 19 in churches doing church music, it was all about male and female, and about finding ways to ungender God, so to speak. All the father language, all of that reference in our hymns, in our language. Yes, the word God itself is gendered. Like, we're stuck with it, right? Because our language does that, and goddess doesn't feel right. So many of us live with the word God, but we think of it in a wider, more expansive kind of a context than just a masculine reference. That is a name for the holy. So, what do we do with Lord language? Lord language. For many of us as musicians, Lord is a beautiful word because it sings well, right? It's a beautiful word to sing. And I could tell you our history in the last 30 years or so in the denomination. When Voices United was being put together, there were standards that were developed around the use of Lord language. And the decision was, in reference to God, Lord, we minimized. You can't get rid of it entirely because it's hard with a lot of older hymns. What are you going to do with the language and so on? But minimizing the use of the Lord language for God, using Lord in reference to Jesus was still allowed in Voices United. I don't like to use that kind of language, but because of our old baptismal formulations, right? Jesus is Lord is the earliest baptismal formulation for Christians. And so it is still, it's what makes us part of the universal church to use that kind of language. I de-emphasize it as much as I can, myself too, because Lord is, it's language of domination. It's language of subjugation. It's language of heavy hierarchy. And to me, there's other ways to say that. Like when I think of the larger expression of Jesus, I think of the Christ, right? Christ is that big heavenly expression, and Jesus is the humanness that makes God presence like us. So what do we do with Lord language? So I would encourage you to look at that when you're looking at Psalms. When you're looking at psalm settings and you've got, we'll sing a new song to the Lord, for example. Just, are there other ways we can express that? Other ways we can express it? Hymn writers today, many hymn writers are changing language as they go. They're making changes. So there's a hymn, I Come With Joy from Voices United, which was in the 1971 book. So if you ever grab that 1971 book sometime and look at that hymn from Voices United and see what Brian Wren did with this text. Brian is someone who, because his career started in the mid-1960s, and he says, before I knew any better, He has revised and reworked his hymns, and that's a classic example of something that has changed. The language has changed quite radically in the way he approaches it. For Everyone Born is a contemporary example. We've been singing that here. Shirley Arena Murray wrote the hymn as a very binary kind of an expression, for woman and man, for young and for old, with all binary kinds of constructions that she wrote. And people started asking her, is there any way you could rephrase that? She didn't get that work done before her death. And so Hope commissioned Dan Damon, who some of you will know, to do a revision, which was just published 2022. That's the version we are now singing. And so the language got changed quite radically, to incorporate more gender expression, to get rid of that binary sense of woman, man. Because I could tell you, it was a few years back, I was leading music at Montreal and Ottawa Conference. It was before our regional structures. And I was trying to get away from using soprano, alto, tenor, bass, because a lot of people say, what's that? When I'm describing singing in parts, I'm teaching a song in 4 parts. So I was saying, high women's part, high men's part, low, and all of that. And somebody came up from the crowd during a break and said, I can't find myself in that language. I can't find myself in that language. And so what have I done? I've gone back to sing soprano, alto, tenor, bass, because we all, you can sing those parts, either gender and so on. We probably, how many have female tenors in their choir? Yeah, exactly. Male altos, any male altos? I sang male alto in Collegium and University. Yeah, so I have to use that kind of language. But that is, it's an issue of our language itself. And so what do we do with it, with our hymns? And then, inclusive language is expanding again today to include all the other kinds of elements. You think of emancipatory, anti-racist language, where we're getting rid of some of the colonial expression in our hymns, like hymns like Jesus shall reign where'er the sun, right? That's a hymn of dominance, written at a particular time, written during the height of the British Empire and the colonial structure of the time. Jesus shall reign. So there's a lot wrapped up in that hymn, a lot wrapped up in it. So what do we do with language like that? What do we do with dark and light language? Darkness and light. You would have noticed in that one piece we sang this morning that shadow was suggested as an alternative to dark. Because dark, for people, when dark is always seen as bad and light is good, which is a lot of the imagery in our hymns, that's what it does. Dark is bad, light is good. Then we end up with, what do we do for people who are of a darker skin color than us? It's just, there's a value judgment going on right there in that. And yes, I know people will say, hymns come to us from Africa and so on that use that language. And there's no cut and dry answer to all of this. Just because it is their expression doesn't mean it has to be our expression. One of the hymns that Lydia didn't mention this morning that is probably not going to be in the online version of the Voices United part of the collection is Fairest Lord Jesus. For that very reason, Fairest Lord Jesus. And yes, there's Beautiful Savior, there's other versions that are out there in the Catholic collections and so on. But what do we do with darkness and light language? When it comes to songs that are copyright and we can't get permission to change, we can offer alternatives with the asterisk like we've been doing for the last 25, 30 years in Voices United and in More Voices. You provide alternative language. That's one way of doing it. Or if a song is just outright offensive, maybe we just don't include it at all. I think that's what it comes down to for our choices. So dark and light language. Yes, and I've already touched on it, avoiding racist, colonial, Christian triumphalism. All of those kinds of expressions. That's one of the reasons why we now sing, Guide me, O thou great and holy. Jehovah itself, if you know the history, that's the anglicized version of Yahweh, which is the unmentionable name for God because it's so holy in Jewish tradition. So you never say the word, and yet we grabbed it and made it one of our names for God. And the last 30 or 40 years, we've been asked by our Jewish partners in Canada to stop doing it. And nothing has happened. We even have Yahweh be praised in More Voices because we're learning, right? So Yahweh be praised has been rewritten for the new collection. So just trying to listen to the communities around us and see what we can do to be as inclusive and welcoming as we can be. Because that's what I'm talking about, and that's what I hope for the church. And those are some of the principles that continue to guide us in the work for Then Let Us Sing, too. We look at all the language in a song and say, this is a problem, Is there something we can do? Can we asterisk a change? Can we ask for a change? And often, when it's somebody from our own community who has written a song, that can happen. People get it. But if it's a very commercial publisher that likes to see the exact same version of their music appear everywhere, then often you can't get permission. So our choice is asterisk, offer alternatives, or leave it out. Avoiding power and hierarchical language is also part of the inclusive language movement. And that's part of the Lord language dilemma as well, right? Lord and dominance is an expression of that. Yeah. Jesus versus Christ. Jesus versus Christ. You'll see in our hymn books increasingly the minimizing of the masculine pronouns when it comes to Christ. Christ is the God expression, and so therefore you minimize. Jesus is a human expression of God, and so Jesus has gender. Jesus has gender. And so we do still have some room for masculine pronoun there. But what do we do with it all? What do we do with it all? You'll see a lot of hymns, we've sung some of them already since we've been here, that have the sisters and brothers language. Sisters and brothers. Brothers, sisters, clergy, lay, called together by your grace. Right? What do we do with lines like that? Anyone? I've been kind of working on ideas, things on the fly, but I'm always interested to hear what other people might say when it comes to those things. If you have one reference, like in the servant song, Sister, let me be your servant, let me be as Christ to you, you can swap out, Richard Bott used to do this all the time, swap for sibling. It keeps that same context. This is a very close, intimate family relationship. Yeah?
Didn't the copyright holder or somebody related to the copyright holder offer an alternative? They phrased it as a question, will you let me be your servant?
I've done that too, yes.
And use it as, it's just a little bit more poetic maybe than sibling.
Yep.
Although I work in siblings too because I'm non-binary, so it's kind of like...
There you go.
I'd like to be included every now and then, so...
Thank you, Chris. Yes, as Chris is offering, you can flip it into a question in that case, will you let me be your servant? And we lose that sibling nature, but still, yes, you could do those kinds of things. And that's better to get copyright permission for those kinds of things. I've been playing with, try this out, anytime you see sister, brother in a hymn, you can do siblings, loved ones. So, and depending on the context, it could be brothers, sisters, loved ones, siblings. You can sing siblings, loved ones. So there are words we can do to just replace in hymns. We don't have copyright permission to do any of this. Of course we don't. But if you do it in your own community, you're not publishing it, you're paying the copyright permissions and all of that. I think we're honoring the copyright. We're just asking to be able to stretch to meet our own context and our own needs. So that's one example. I don't have a firm answer for how to deal with sisters, brothers yet in that context. Son of man, I do have a firm answer for an alternative to Son of Man, that old language used to describe the Christ, Son of Man. In ecological, theological circles, the standard alternative is child of earth. Child of earth. And that gets that human expression and the embodied, grounded nature of the original intention of that phrase, Son of Man. And so I often use that. Child of earth. Yeah?
So is the concern with the word son, or is it the concern with man? Because you already said Jesus was the human,
Yeah.
and so therefore he has gender, so he could rightfully be called a son.
Yeah.
So
he
is
could.
it son of man that
Well,
is the problem?
It's just to make it as inclusive as we can. It's more man. You know, my choir members when I was 19 used to say, my female choir members used to say, but man includes me. I feel included when people say man. And I'd say, but I don't feel like I'm honoring you when I say that. It's a challenge, yes?
Son of Man, I think, has roots in the idea that in the old Hebrew tradition.
Here we go. Microphone. Let's use a mic.
Oh, sorry.
Start again. Thank you.
Son of Man has roots in the Hebrew scriptural tradition of having the male line described in genealogies.
Yes.
And one of the scandals of it, I don't know if everybody has, this is probably old news, but the genealogies for Jesus includes people like Rahab, who was not only not a Jew, but not a female, was a female. And it was an insult in Jesus' time to refer to him as Mary's son rather than son of Joseph, because it was sort of a slur on his genealogy. And I think we're trying to expunge that from our religious language, I think. And I think there's validity in that.
Yeah, to lean on the argument that this is our tradition and this is what the tradition does. Our tradition has been patriarchal all along. You know, it was created by men for men, right? Women did not have much of a place in our tradition. So to argue that we're sticking with tradition because that's what we need to do, it's time to change, people. It's time to change, right? It's hard to change our language. There are languages in the world that are coming up with a non-gendered pronoun that are taking off. It hasn't happened in English yet. We're experimenting with Z and all the other kinds of alternatives, trying to use the plural they and them as a singular kind of a word. We're not there yet, but we can be part of that journey and yet still be, Trinitarian Christians as we do it. So I think that's really important.
I was just going to say, God is a party to our every conversation. And I think, well, I was always taught that it's bad manners to talk about somebody who is present as though they aren't. God is not a he or a she or an it or a one. God is you, because God is here with me and hears every word I say. So, I mean, sure, maybe we're dancing around the issue, but I think that the theology is sound.
Thank you. Beautiful. So we can come up with a repertoire of alternatives that often work, even in our traditional hymns, like God our Father, when you see that phrase come up in a hymn. There are things you could do, right? You might be able to swap God our Parent, which still captures, the family relationship. You could go to God Creator, God our Father, God Creator. The syllable count depends on word stress and so on, but you can often, I keep a repertoire of these kinds of things in my head, alternatives that we could use, and then just do those switches, because how many people are using projection now for putting their words up on the screen and singing that way? Kind of.
Well, we have it on our...
Yes, I know it takes a little while longer to carry the microphone around.
Why y'all couldn't sit in one place, man?
Because we're not allowed to sit on each other's laps, Karen. No, in my church we sing out of the hymn books for the people who are present, but there is a PowerPoint slide that is included for the online portion of the service. And so there is a PowerPoint, but it's just not on a screen, but we do have that both aspect.
Yeah.
So it's a yes and no.
Yes and no. That's more complicated. If you're already projecting your words, then you can make changes. You can offer alternatives. You could asterisk. You could do all of that on the screen. Yeah. And only the choir will know. That's right. Only those who have the books will know. And really, if people are going to continue to sing out of the book, and people can continue to sing the language they need to sing, it's just, this is a statement, particularly when we're affirming communities. It says, we need to do this together. We can't force everyone to do it, but we as a people are making these changes so that we can include and truly be who we say we are trying to be. So I think Alexandra? What, another? Gotta run. You can start moving towards the microphone too to save the runners.
Test, test. I just wish to say that in my experience in an Anglophone educational institution has been that indeed it has more to do with the patriarchal system than the language, actually. Mostly because I come from a different system where it wasn't presumed that the composer would be a man or so on. And also the word for, the generic word for a human is human. Like, it's not that in English, like people are trying to make it so. But the generic word of a human is човек, for example. So there is no male or female attached to it. And it was only upon immigrating that my Anglophone colleagues started correcting my English when I was using gendered terms, like a generic he or a generic she. Because I use generic she, because how do I know? Like, I'm translating from Bulgarian and suddenly it splits into two options. So I swapped from one to the other, and both times they said, no, that's not how you say it. So I said, okay. But it's because you notice the system inequalities that you're trying to make a statement with the language, I think. That's what we are trying to do, and hopefully will inspire a change in the system. Yes. But just to say that if you didn't grow up in such a system, you see things differently.
That's right. Yeah. English and French are both quite gendered. So that's
yes, Bulgarian too, but a divorce in traditional Bulgarian culture is the woman leaves and goes back to her house. And if the man leaves, the other people in the village kill him. So this is divorce. So obviously, you know, the whole 60s revolution in women's rights, like, it went over my head for like a decade before I said, wow, people really like have strong feelings about it. But you do understand that it's the presumption of injustice. Okay, this is the word. The presumption of injustice is present when you know the context, right? Yes. But if you don't know the context, there is no presumption of injustice.
Yes.
So I sing in the multicultural group that I was part of at McGill. It was a Jewish person who taught me the "Oh Great Jehovah" hymn. There was no mention of Jehovah not being okay. It was a Jewish person. So I'm like, always good. So now I'm in a different context, and obviously it's different. And I just wanted to say that I find this really interesting and enlightening, that we look at a same piece of music and they're different, and they're very much different reactions and feelings about it. So that's it.
Thank you. Yes, I've been doing the inclusive language thing for so long. Well, Cheryl and I both, we'll sit in church and I look over, and when one word goes by, I see her flinch. Literally, it's a physical reaction. Because we're so close to being inclusive in the language in our community that it's jarring to have that little insertion of something that doesn't fit our context. And I hope we can all get to that place. There are some tools we can use too, like for your scripture reading, switch to the Inclusive Bible. Do you know the Inclusive Bible? They still use Yahweh throughout, so you've got to swap your Yahwehs because we're talking about that as well. But all of our scripture reading is from the Inclusive Bible in our community, and that works well. And we say it every single time, our reading from the Inclusive Bible. And we change language for hymns, we do all of that we can. And yet, what do you do with that great canon of grand hymns of our tradition, when often there is a crazy amount of exclusive language in there? Hard for me to even sing, like the suggestion this morning to do "How Great Thou Art." You know, I'm wincing. That's a song that I grew up despising as a child. And many people love it. They do. They do. But I have real trouble singing that one. Another collection, our sister denomination, I should say our sibling denomination, see, there's my problem with language right there. Our sibling denomination in the United States, the United Church of Christ, when they did their major hymnal, the New Century Hymnal, which came out 2 years before Voices United, they did the hard work of trying to be more inclusive. They did it. And as a result, if you want to have some alternative versions of many of the traditional hymns, the older hymns, get a copy of the New Century Hymnal, because they went there. We opted to, because we're a big umbrella tent kind of denomination, we opted to not do that hard work. And in some ways I'm wishing we had, but also, speaking practically, Voices United sold like crazy throughout the church. The New Century Hymnal was adopted by maybe 30% of congregations in the United Church of Christ switched, whereas in the United Church of Canada, where 95% of congregations grabbed Voices United and switched to that hymn book. Aside from our good old pocket of Newfoundland and Labrador, where I was there 7 or 8 years ago, and most congregations were still not using Voices United, still using the old blue hymnary, 1930 hymnary, Songs of the Gospel from 1948, and all those kinds of collections. Still singing out of those other books. But that's the challenge of going there fully. But you could see the language change as just part of our history too, right? Like the original version of Hark the Herald Angels Sing is, Hark how all the welkin rings, glory to the King of Kings. What the heck is a welkin, right? The word disappeared because it stopped having meaning for us. It was that ancient term for the celestial sphere, was the welkin. But the word disappears. Or Amazing Grace, it saved a worm like me. And people are like, worm? Ooh, that's a little bit icky. Yeah, worm. I know, it's a bit more earthy, isn't it? But it became wretch. And then we had the alternative asterisk in Voices United, saved and strengthened me, right? An alternative asterisk in the book. So this is part of our history that we adapt, and so that we can continue to sing our tradition. So I think we're at that point where we need to do that work together collectively. And we're not changing all the language in Voices United. We're not, because it's a massive job, and to get people to agree on what the alternatives would be insane. But I'm starting to wonder whether we need some kind of a denominational sharing network where we could do this. Somebody comes up with a great altar. Verse 3 of Joy to the World. I just solved that for my community, and you post it, and it becomes part of a collection. And those are the kinds of things we can continue to offer as a denomination then too, being a bit more careful around the copyright pieces, but certainly with all the public domain hymns that have been around for 100 years and more, why can't we do that kind of thing and start offering alternatives together in that way? Anyway, the New Century Hymnal is a great inclusive resource. They didn't go entirely in that direction either, but the classic canon of hymns is so much more singable, just in terms of grabbing what they've done and bring it into your context. That works really well. There are writers like Carl Daw, who's a former leader in the Hymn Society and fellow of the Hymn Society. He's had a project to do the entire Psalter in metrical form over the past number of years. He's just brought out volume 3, and there's the occasional Lord reference here and there, but I said to Carl, it's wonderful that somebody has decided to just do this in what is almost entirely an inclusive language way, and yet you don't even notice that it is. That's like that opening hymn we just sang, When We Seek Language, right? You don't even know it's inclusive language. It's just rich and expansive language for God, for Christ, and for the Spirit. So that's a beautiful thing. Yeah? Oh, microphone coming.
This question would maybe have been better in the Then Let Us Sing session. But when you talk about the online resource and hymns that will be retired or ones that will have adaptations when they're put into the new resource. Is there, I can see pros and cons to having a list. Would there be any list of what changes were made going on to the online resource? I feel like that could easily open the panel up to lots of criticism that wouldn't otherwise happen. But I wonder for music directors if it would be a helpful to know, you know, or, you know, if you have a hymn you've done, you know, as many of them forever, and then it comes out, or, you know, somewhere to check and see if it's one that has had a change made or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around where the committee is at on exactly which pieces are changing and coming out and so on. But when we're all done, it really is very few. Like, we're really trying to honor the repertoire for what it is. It's really the issues like the anti-Semitic passages.
I do feel like EPE
Well-
is definitely doing work around it, and I feel like some of that material could easily go into the supplement booklet.
Ah,
Yeah, that we're thinking of.
okay, yeah, Lydia's just saying that we could easily, our Education, Justice, and Ethos Committee is doing the work, and we could easily, you're right, we could have a page in the supplement that lists the pieces that are gone and why.
Is this being
Very
recorded?
simply.
Just someone write that down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's being recorded. So we have to stick with it now.
So I can remember, it's really.
Yeah. But for me, it's what do we do with that great canon that is still going to be in the collection overall? You know, how do we sing those in communities that are trying to be inclusive, that are being open to gender expression, that say they want to be open to people of different cultures and faith traditions and all of that, you know? That's a hard thing. Oh, I actually have. I was telling you to have a look and compare I Come With Joy from the hymn book and from Voices United. I'm just going to read you a few of the changes that Brian made. I did write them down here. The life of Jesus to recall, in love laid down for me. And originally, his life laid down for me. In love laid down for me. So it still honors the sacrificial quality of the statement, but it gets rid of the gendered expression. In verse 2, the new community of love replaces man's true community of love. And it just flows, right? There's the writer himself being able to make those kinds of changes. The spirit of the risen Christ, this is verse 4. The original was, and thus with joy to meet our Lord, his presence always near, is in such friendship better known alive, we see and praise him here. And it became the spirit of the risen Christ, unseen but ever near. His presence always near, unseen but ever near, is in such friendship better known, alive among us here. Replacing we see and praise him here. So those are simple poetic changes, right? But that's in the hands of the original author who could rethink and restructure. As Chris was suggesting for the sister, let me be your servant, won't you let me be your servant? That's the copyright holder makes that kind of a call. That's an alteration that makes it sing well. Yeah.
I wish to say that it makes all the difference when the poetry is good. But when the change is clunky, then and they don't sing well, they don't rhyme well, and they don't use expressions that we know, then that's the thing with music too. Like if it's crappy, like there's nothing you can do to save it, really.
Yes.
But yeah, but
That's
what
why-
you said, like it's so good, you don't even notice. Yeah. So when the author is a good poet, well, they can make anything work.
Yeah. And that's why if we do this in community and come up with changes, somebody will come up with something that's slightly clunky maybe, but works, and somebody else refines it and says we could do this instead, you could flip it around. I do that with hymn texts. Like you could preserve the rhyme scheme, but you move the rhyme that was in the first line, you move it down to the second line and replace a word at the end to give you a new expression that honors the original intention of the text and yet makes it singable. You can do those kinds of things. Yeah. I didn't say so much in our songwriting session today, but I usually do say, I really wish that all of us, when we're writing, would think of language before we start creating music. that we would do that work so the text that you are working with sings for everyone right from the beginning. Because then we don't have these issues anymore, you know? That's so important. So important. Here's I did do one example of this. All creatures of our God and King, lift up your voice and with us sing. Hallelujah, hallelujah. I just did this a couple of days ago. All creatures, let your voices ring. Heaven's angels join to sing. Hallelujah, hallelujah. It captures the rhyme is there, the original intention is there, but we get rid of God and King in the language of the hymn. So there are things like that we can do, right? And yet the flow, that's why we went with God, guide me, O thou great and holy. There was some, the Presbyterians went to guide me, O thou great Redeemer, which I think, Redeemer, I hate that. And then there was, maybe we could go to the shepherd image, which is in the French paraphrase, the French translation. But I suggested, how about great and holy, because Jehovah, holy, you get the O in the same spot. And so it feels more natural, right? It's not the same, I know, but you're also using the big words for God, great and holy, which actually is not a bad translation of what Jehovah, Yahweh actually means. So we can do those kinds of things, but I think we can do it in community. I think we can. So I have to keep talking about.
Adjectives translate well back into French.
Sorry?
Adjectives translate well back into French.
Adjectives translate well back into French. Yeah, we can get ideas from other translations and other paraphrases, because often they have expressed something differently. Yeah, that's a very helpful way to approach this, for sure. So I would suggest, why don't you pull out your books, your hymn book. We have a few minutes left. Grab a book, pick out a hymn you know has some problems to it. Well, let's have a look. And just see what we can workshop together in terms of some language change.
I don't hear anybody doing anything with the Lord's Prayer. And that to me just bounces right off the top.
Linda was saying she doesn't hear anybody doing anything with the Lord's Prayer, but that's happening too. You will find new versions coming into Then Let Us Sing that are different. I've been doing work in our community. I was talking about some of this earlier with folks in our community, because I've been finding a lot of beautiful paraphrases, some from the Aramaic, etc. Some of them are quite different. You get the Aramaic itself is so much richer. I mean, in English we locked it in. Some of those words have 10 or 12 meanings. They're rich, deep words. They got translated one way only in English. So we can change all that up. Like I have a setting of, O breathing light, O name that shines, reveal a space for presence here. That's the Lord's Prayer, expressed from the Aramaic in another way. So I have a number of settings of those. I put them up on our Facebook group before. I can do that again. I got 6 or 7 different settings of alternatives. But there is also, like the original language, the intimacy of what Jesus said in the Aramaic. We translate as our Father, but the word is daddy, right? It's that Abba word, daddy. The intimacy of that parent connection you want to preserve as much as possible. So it's hard, right? Like I find it clunky to sing our parent who art in heaven, all of those kinds of things. I don't think we're there yet with that. Creator in heaven, that's closer to me. It destroys that intimate parent relationship, but it does capture the wider sense of God presence. So, yeah, that's a hard one. 334. Wow, you're diving right into it there. 334. All hail the power of Jesus' name. Let angels prostrate fall. Bring forth the royal diadem and crown him, crown him, crown him, Lord of all. Whew! Well, what do you think? Don't do it, yeah. Yeah, this is one that we don't sing in our context because it is so triumphal. You know, yes, a lot of the masculine reference is Jesus reference, and the Lord reference is a Jesus reference as well. So in terms of our Voices United guidelines, it still fits within our wider context, but I do wonder, O seed of Israel's chosen race, now ransomed from the fall. Ooh, that's a tough one. Now we're veering into anti-Semitism too. That's right, you want to add that to the list as well, Lydia? Oh, we missed that one. So should we take a vote? Don't sing it? Anybody? Don't sing? Others want to keep singing it? Love the tune, yeah. Write new words. That is, most of you, I hope, have never read my dissertation, but the development of hymn tune repertoire in the United Church of Canada, that's one of the things that I said. Our tunes themselves have had a much greater longevity than the hymns, because we have things like Praise with Joy, the World's Creator. Beautiful old tune, new words we can sing, right? So we can keep beautiful old tunes and give them new life by writing a new text.
335.
What? Sorry, Kara?
Sorry, I have the mic. Voices United 326. I have gotten into fights about this one because it's Charles Wesley. Sorry.
For 1,000 tongues, 326.
Yeah, and it's a part of a very much longer song.
It certainly is.
Problematic verses. This one, I really cannot sing. I can't.
And what about it? Makes you not be able to sing
There's
it?
a lot of language that's happening. Like, just even verse 4, hear him, you deaf, you voiceless ones. It's just like the phrasing is just, it's just a harsher, and with the melody, I don't know, it's just something in me that I can't.
Well, you've helped me touch on one of the things that was on my list, but I forgot to mention it, ableism. Ableism is a big part of what we're working with. And, Lydia has the sniffer for that language. Walk language, blind, seeing, hearing, the deaf, all of those kinds of things. They're problematic because they exclude, right? So sometimes you can sing it when it's truly metaphorical rather than so physical, the physical presence of it. But you're right, there's a lot in there that's challenging. Sometimes you can leave a verse out, right? I do that with Be Thou My Vision. We don't sing verse 3. Sorry, I'll go there quickly just so you can see what I'm talking about. I need the number here. I figured somebody would know the number. I know a lot of them, but sometimes my brain lets me down. 642. Yes, Be Thou My Vision. The verse we're leaving out is Be Thou my battle shield, sword for the fight. Be Thou my dignity, Thou my delight. And if you leave that verse out, it's quite an inclusive hymn, just by eliminating one verse. I had us do that with How Great Thou Art this morning. I said, please, let's not sing verse 3. Verse 3 is the one that is so heavily in atonement language that I struggle with it.
Have you had much exposure to the work that Carolyn Winfrey Gillette has done?
Yes?
That's a useful resource.
Yeah, no, he's referring to Carolyn Winfrey Gillette. We have Summer of Music and More Voices. We're one of the first hymn books to start including her stuff. She's writing new scripture song and so on that brings those stories to life in simple meter and good poetry. Yep, so Chris had a comment, and then there was one over here. So.
262, A Mighty Fortress is out.
Woohoo! So far, we're just hitting a lot of stuff that's probably don't sing it anymore. 262, you said? Oh, yes, there it is. Non duncet alle God. Yeah.
But then where does history play a role that you want to recognize Martin Luther's heart?
Well, sometimes we just need new paraphrase, because this is a paraphrase of the original. What's the other Luther hymn that we have the other? I'm trying to think of which hymn it is. J. McPherson did a fresh English paraphrase of it for the 1971 hymn book, which is carried on No. Anyway, I'll try and look it up. But there's an example of somebody doing a modern paraphrase that eliminates a lot of the issues with the original English paraphrase of the German. Because you can massage a paraphrase, right? You can, if you do it fresh. So that might be the way to be able to continue to sing a hymn like this, a fresh paraphrase that just delves into some of the other images, expands the imagery that we have. In that yeah.
What's that right here?
That's a modern attempt to do it, yeah. That's not the one I'm talking about, though, but yes, thank you. You're a good point.
It's From Heaven Above to Earth I Come, that's another Luther.
Yes.
That's in here.
Yep, that's beautiful. Yeah, Jay McPherson was the lone woman on the 1971 hymn book committee. One woman. She was a poet and a scholar, and she knew more than most of the men in the room. But I'm so glad she was there on that committee. So somebody here had one for us to look at? Anyway, pop another one out. We'll have a quick look. So far, we're having trouble, aren't we? I'm thinking of ones where we might be able to swing one word change, two word changes. But point out anything you want to look at.
220, praise to the Lord the Almighty.
220.
Yeah, great tune, but...
Yeah. This is the one. No, that's not hers, but this is another one where you can sing the alternate paraphrase. Sing praise to God who has shaped and sustains all creation. It's a wonderful paraphrase, and have a quick look at it. It's a lot more singable.
There's also Jane Parker Huber's O God of Vision, which is it's to that and it's fabulous.
Okay. Jane Parker Huber's which one, sorry?
Oh, sorry.
It's
Hello.
okay.
Another alternative that fits beautifully to that tune is Jane Parker Huber's, it's not a new one,
Yeah.
O God of Vision far greater than all human scheming, gather us now in your presence, refreshing, redeeming. It's
Okay.
wonderful.
And is it a paraphrase of the original as well, or it's fresh?
No, it's a new text.
It's fresh.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, fresh text will always do it. Ones that capture the essence of the original without having to try and paraphrase again. Others? 660. How firm a foundation, you servants of God, is laid for your faith in God's excellent word. The last couple of verses, when through fiery trials your pathway shall lie, my grace all sufficient shall be your supply. Well, your dross to consume is one of those words. Yeah. It's a good thing to do. Yeah. This one isn't bad as things go for language. You've got the fiery trials of hell and so on in this, so if your theology doesn't include heaven and hell hierarchy, then that's not so good.
Eternal Father, strong to save.
Eternal Father, strong to save. Yes, indeed. 659. And that one you could easily just flip to another alternative. Eternal Parent, strong to save. O great Creator, strong to save, whose arm has bound the restless wave. You could flip the language right out and save a hymn.
I don't know which one it is, but there's one that has to do with, they'll take all the good wheat into the garner and throw it all the chaff in the fire.
Oh, that's Harvest Home. How many faithful people come? Yeah.
Come, ye thankful people, come, yeah. But that's the problem, we get stuck on the tune, eh? Yeah. Yeah, Cheryl's mom, who's no longer with us, she loved things like Blessed Assurance, and I'd say, Mom, have you ever looked at the words? And she'd look at them and go, ooh! Because we divorce ourselves from actually realizing what we're singing, we just love it so much. So which one was it? What number is it, Cheryl? 516. 516? Is it verse 3 is a challenge?
Fire the weeds to cast, the tares to cast.
But in the fire the weeds to cast, that's straight out of the scriptures, right?
The fruitful leaves to sow in the garner,
When do we do this with the Bible is the question for those on.
I will profit from being.
That is a challenge, isn't it?
I will profit from the microphone that's right here.
Okay.
I don't know whether you guys know, but a number of composers, Schubert being a very known example, wrote the music before speaking to poets. I mean, there are even collections called Songs Without Words. Because, you know, you write some good tunes, and then you shop them around. You say, hey, do you like my music? Okay, well, then write some words for it. Because the good tunes stick. So I think that we as a community should really consider, you know, giving a job to some really good poets. And they can write us many wonderful new hymns that we can sing to wonderful tunes. And poets will have jobs, and this will be a revolution that we are going to cause.
We were talking about this earlier in the songwriting session, encouraging people to write in the common standard meters, the most common meters, because then we can resurrect a lot of beautiful tunes. Because it's true, we're connected to the tunes too, right? You might wince a little bit when you sing some of those words, but the tune just makes your heart soar. You know, and some of that's just related to, we've been doing it all our lives. Wow. Well, this is fun, everyone. I'm wincing my way through it, but
I have a more general question.
Yes.
Just with regards to, you know, a lot of the reasoning for wanting to move to more inclusive language, or like a lot of the understanding of why language is exclusive. A lot of our congregation members won't be on the same page as us, even if those of us in the room are already on the page, you know, we're striving to be. And I just wonder what role a music director has in taking the congregation on that somewhat of a theological journey. I understand you've been in a church that's been doing this work for many, many years. But if, I'm not going to use the T word.
It's because I guided them into it. You know, our community they thought they were very inclusive, but they were almost all white. And, you know, we're welcoming, but then why do you only sing in English? You don't sing in any other languages. You sing what you like to sing. You don't sing stuff that includes and welcomes. So this is related. You know, I've always encouraged congregations to do musical mission statements. And these should be theological statements too. That's where we're headed for this. So if you can encourage your congregation to do this work together, you'd obviously have to bring your clergy on board with that work too. So the community is into it, and the community says, yes, we're an affirming congregation, and when we mean affirming, we mean this. Then you have something to anchor it on. So it's not you as the lightning rod, it's the community has done this work together, and you're fulfilling that promise together to each other. I think that's about the only way you can do it, where it doesn't become, those nasty musicians always wanting to switch things up and you get in trouble. Yeah.
Come back woke.
Yeah. Come back woke. In a good way. Yeah, I think we do have to do that kind of work first. Help, you know, encourage people to do that theological work as a community, and root those decisions in that, because then it's not just you, right? Like if I change language on the fly when we're singing, I'm doing the song leading. If we have forgotten to change something, I just sing what I want to sing. And you know, it's my voice that goes out over Zoom more than anyone else's. So they hear the alternative sung for them, right? Like in the bleak midwinter, you know, that closing verse. If I were a wise man, I would do my part. If I were a wise one, I would do my part. And it gets changed in our projection slides, and then next time I say, put that in there, please, and it's there again. It's like, I forgot to catch it. You just sing it anyway, if I were a wise one. And most people in the congregation know the change and sing it anyway. But that's, you know, we're talking change over a number of years, encouraging communities to really think about what it means if you're going to be affirmed. As we are as an organization, we need to do this work together too. So that, because, you know, we come together and we broadcast to our wider community, and what is that saying when there's a lot of exclusive language going out from our community too? I don't think it bodes well for our future as an organization. We're not done the affirm process yet. We're kind of stuck in the middle. We'll be looking at, I think the big piece that's waiting for us is community engagement with our community. But we have to, dealing with our Firm United organization can be, getting the answers we need is not always easy. So we're just trying to say, what steps do you want us to do next? And I know that'll be a big part of it. So maybe next year, hopefully in Montreal, when we gather with Alexandra, who's graciously welcoming us to Montreal next year. Woohoo! To sing in the largest Methodist sanctuary ever built in Canada, 2,200 seats in its original configuration. But maybe we'll be ready for that community engagement then, and then we can do our proclamation. You may have noticed, if you look at our mission statement, the mission statement was changed 3 or 4 years ago to include, you're supposed to name all genders are welcome, right, etc. They have language they want you to do. We did that work. We've been on this journey together, and we'll continue to do that work. So, I think we've done our task, people. That's beautiful. Thank you.